It's the two strange men.
And so I said to him, you know, if you're gonna fuck a monkey, you've got to do it in private.
I hate these opens.
What?
I hate these opens.
Oh, we're
so
recording?
much.
Oh, so sorry. Okay, all right. Hello, this is another...
I think you put more effort into these openings than the rest of the show. I really do.
I really don't. Okay, so this is another episode of Two Strange Men. My name is Carl, and I have not fucked a monkey. And it's Tom over there, aren't you, Tom? You're Tom.
I'm Tom, and I've also not fucked a monkey.
Of course, you're just not willing
Yeah.
to mention on microphone that you have.
And just remember, as always, these openings are the best part of the show. So buckle in for the rest of the shit.
It's all downhill from here because we are going into...
Downtown to Hades Town, boy.
Yes, the Underworld. What a segue that was. Yeah, it's all downhill. Okay, right. So in this episode, it is a follow-up to the Mad God episode, which was a literal descent into an underworld of sorts.
Grotesque, hellish creatures everywhere.
Yes.
Fire. Very biblical.
Very biblical, very biblical. And essentially what we're doing here is we're going to be looking at the idea of stories that react to the idea of an underworld, that have characters delve into an underworld. Now, there is actually an ancient Greek, which is where most of our thoughts come from this, from a Western standpoint at least. There is actually a name... like a Greek name to describe it, and I guess it's like, you know, one that describes it in literature and stuff like that. In relation to this, it's called a catabasis.
Yes.
Okay, so a catabasis is essentially the descent, which is the kata, and to go, which is the basis, or bainu. So essentially, you've got to go down, and that's...
Hades Town.
Yeah, go down to Hades Town. Yeah, catabasis in Hades Town. Yeah, essentially. So yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of things, you've pretty much got a word for everything, haven't you? And yeah, so there are quite a lot of significant stories. We've got the Greek stories, isn't there? We've got other such stories as well. I've kind of like focused on like Christianity and the Grecian and the Roman sort of stuff.
Whereas I wanted to go like a little bit of a different angle and look at the Mayans and the Aztec.
Okay.
And briefly looked at kind of really early depictions of the afterlife.
Yeah, cool. I've got a tiny little smidgen of like Asia, like Japan, China.
Japan?
Japan.
That's what it was before it was Japan. Japan.
Japan.
What great start. Just turn off now, please, for the love of God. Monkey fucking Japan.
Monkey fucking in Japan. There's no racial connotations to that, okay? That's just two words I've smashed together like a lobster telephone, okay?
So, because I feel like this episode is going to be more sensical than our other ones, I'm going to throw in a nonsensical thing to continue the start of this.
Okay.
And that's, I was researching, we're on our triple episode today.
Yeah.
Because we have a big schedule during the summer. That's when we take our time off. So we're doing a couple of episodes here and there as like a smash together. So as I was like researching for this episode today, I just, wasn't really thinking, popped the Underworld into Google. Guess what? It spat back out.
Well, isn't there like a musical troupe called Underworld?
Camden Rock Club. Come to the Underworld on Saturday the 5th of April. Doors open at 11 for a demonic night out.
Okay, are we going? Are we going to check that out?
Well, it's gone past the 5th.
Oh, okay. But they're not doing it again?
Guess where it's at? This is perfect.
Okay, it's in Camden.
In Camden. The World's End.
The World's End.
Yeah.
Have you been in the World's End pub?
I've not.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a name of the film in the Cornetto trilogy.
Yep.
The worst one out of the three.
Easily
the worst one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like World's End, just a normal pub, very famous pub in Camden. I would recommend going there, but also if you go there, you're going to get a pint that's thoroughly over expensive. So
Well, it's Camden, isn't it?
It's Camden, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actually one of the elements of hell is the fact that you can't go anywhere in hell without the beers being extremely overpriced.
At least over £7.
Yeah, if it's £7 or over, that's hell to me.
I mean, I'm a northerner.
Yeah.
The idea of anything over £4.50 makes my blood shriek.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
£2 pints all the way for me. Thank you very much.
Back to £1 madness, please. Show my age a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. The Brit Club, £1 Wickeds.
Okay, where
me
was
back.
this? What country was this? You
England.
can't just say the Brit Club, like.
Scunthorpe.
Oh, in Scunthorpe, yeah?
Back to my roots.
Yeah, okay. So if anyone doesn't know where Scunthorpe is, just picture like
Picture
an
hell.
underworld
Yeah.
of some sort, okay? Fill it with northerners, okay?
Which arguably makes it better.
Yeah. It depends. Fucking northern monkeys.
Not northwest. We're northeast boys. They're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just starting a war with everyone from Manchester and Liverpool.
Okay, all right. So let's get a jump in here. Okay, so probably the most famous idea of the underworld, I think, would be Greece. Okay.
Yeah.
Greek Hades. Okay, because we describe it as the underworld. And there are different elements of the Greek underworld that we can essentially take away from. But essentially, this is a place where you can essentially wait out eternity as some sort of like fucking dead person, I guess.
Yeah. And it's really interesting when we look at the like early interpretations of, let's just say, like underworld, hell, whatever you want to kind of call it.
Yeah.
It was influenced by Jewish and Greek beliefs of the time.
Right.
And they depicted it as a shadowy, silent pit called Sheol.
Sheol. Yeah. Heard of that.
Where all souls lingered.
Yeah.
Later on, they suggested separate realms for righteous people and wicked people, and eventually the idea of eternal punishment in a fiery place came in.
Yeah.
Kind of like Tartarus.
From my Bible studies, actually remember Sheol being mentioned. It's mentioned actually in the Bible as well. So it's like a deep Hebrew thing.
Like a precursor to a lot of what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
When we talk about sort of like the Christian and Greek elements.
Yeah.
Of this, it's all influenced by Sheol.
I think like the idea of an underworld has always been within the ancient collective consciousness, because you've got loads and loads of places that will have their own versions of it.
Yeah.
Much like, they've every ancient civilization has a fucking thunder god. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's got
Well, that's
like
a
an
shiny
underworld
thing. Let's try and like rationalize it.
Yeah.
What I find terrifying about this version of kind of the underworld is that usually when we think of any type of underworld guarded by a deity, we think punishment happening, loud, chaotic.
Yeah.
What's really scary about this is quite often it's depicted as silent.
Yeah.
Completely silent and completely devoid of anything. It is a minimal state of existence. And if we kind of look at that from a realistic point of view, one of the worst things that you can do, in my opinion, to a kind of like prisoner is to put them in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
In a state of no noise, no visual cues.
Yeah.
Imagine that for the rest of your existence.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's one of the things. It's like, at the end of the day, this is about facing death, isn't it? It's the idea of the underworld and having an adventure where you're going into the underworld, seeing people that have died and other such things like that. Can you rescue someone from the underworld, which is often a reason why you're going in the underworld in the first place? It's all about like you can't cheat death, you know,
Yeah.
but you can kind of understand death and stuff like that, and that's what you get from these stories. And the idea that there is a depiction of death or the underworld, Sheol, where there's like nothingness, kind of like, you know, like puts a emphasis on the idea of like, okay, how does the atheist amongst us believe in the afterlife? Well, there is no fucking afterlife. Like they're basically, it almost feels like that's the case. And for these ancient Hebrews and stuff like that, that was the most scary thing, is the idea of like, well, after death, there ain't shit. You're just dead. But they can't say
You're
that.
just dead.
Yeah, exactly. But they can't say that. It's like, well, in our depiction of the underworld, there is nothingness. Whoa, scary.
But guess what? If you're a good little boy, you get to keep existing.
Yeah. So yeah, like that whole idea of descending into the underworld for a particular reason. There's so many different reasons why, but often it ends up being to save someone who has died. So these trips in the underworld, they get linked to the idea of resurrection, you know, and yeah, like what story should we go into first, do you think?
I mean, we could do this one of two ways, right? We could either throw out quite a known popular one, or we could start with lesser known, like the Aztecs or Mayans, or we could kind of delve into Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
The Divine Comedies. I am happy for you to descend in whatever order you would like to descend in.
I think we should maybe get the most popular one out of the way. I think we're just going to go Greek first of all.
Yeah.
And okay, so
I always say go Greek. If you're not
Greek.
sure what to do, go Greek.
Smash a fucking plate.
Yeah.
Get into it.
In
Yeah.
any way, shape, or life. Food, women,
Go Greek.
society, go Greek.
Yeah. But don't get them to the Greek, okay?
But don't follow their economic advice, because they didn't do very well.
Sure. Go Greek with the old economy. Okay, so you know, there are countless numbers of stories that kind of revolve around the underworld. Last week we talked about the idea of Dionysus descending into the underworld to save a playwright, for example.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, there's all sorts of others. So there is a story of Persephone, for example, where, you know, Hades needs a wife, essentially, and so, like, you know, there's this whole idea of Persephone having to, like, go to the underworld and be his significant other, but then she's reborn and stuff like that, and she's related to the like festivals and things like that of like harvest and stuff like that.
Yeah, she becomes a very prominent figure in mythos, doesn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to just add a little snippet of one of our other episodes where we talk about one of Persephone's festivals, the Eleusinian Mysteries. So check that episode out, or at least that sample, and then you can get the full thing on Patreon. But just getting back to Hades, all of these different places, these underworld places, what I find interesting is that people spend a lot of time mapping them out in their minds. Like, there's this place, and that's where these people go. That's this place, and these where these people go. And you don't really get that with other, like, parts of mythology and stuff like that. Nothing is as, like, you know, illustrated in that way. Like, it's very similar in a way to, like, you look at, like, fantasy authors at the start of their book. There's always a map,
great detailed map,
detailed map, and it's like there is so much adventure and intrigue in going into the depths of hell. You know, that I guess, like, resonates with audiences as they tell this story, and it's like it's interesting how you've got that element so early on coming out. It's just the idea of mapping it all out so that we can see all of the different quadrants and stuff.
Well, we probably think about death as much as we think about life, really, don't we? And to try and make sense of something so unknown to us, because we can bumble through life with what we see and what we understand. We
Yeah.
know nothing about death, so it makes sense that we spend more time mapping it, trying to make it a tangible thing.
That's it. Yeah.
So I think of all of the things that we've researched, this was the easiest to gain an understanding and just all of the knowledge being there.
Yeah.
Because it's something we think every philosopher, every kind of thinker has dwelled on the idea of the afterlife, because
Absolutely.
it is something that is always with us.
Really detailed sort of stories that end up getting produced, and I think the idea of having these stories attached to the idea of sin and punishment, and torment, and like living a good life and stuff like that, I think that fuels the idea of like mapping it out so that you can potentially, and what we're going to end up doing with this is we're going to be rating one sin over another, because there seems to be some debate in that. But anyway, we're talking about Hades and the Underworld and stuff like that. So there's often like an entrance to these sort of areas, and there's definitely an entrance to the Underworld. There's kind of like a sort of like an airport waiting room sort of thing where you've got these characters that don't have coins for the ferryman, who are unable to cross the River Styx into the Underworld. And I always thought that was like an interesting concept. Like, I thought it would be interesting to maybe make a short film or something like that, where you have someone that's died who's not got the money for the ferryman. What would they actually do? How would they be able to like traverse that, or what would they try to go back up the other way and try and come back to life?
Would they just end up being a soul in the River Styx?
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously that would be the end result, really, but like I thought it was quite interesting. And I've always been fascinated by that idea of like the 2 coins for the boatman. You always see it like in Troy and stuff like that, like Hector has like the 2 coins on his fucking head and shit like that. It's really cool.
I love the idea of someone just like dying, getting there, and going, "Oh, where's my coins?" And he's going, "Oh, fuck's sake, I left them in my other pocket." oh, what are you gonna do?
When my beloved cat, whose name was Incubus, died, I gave him 2 coins. I put that in his grave.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Just in case there was a cat skeleton.
Yeah. Like a little Charon, the guy that's the ferryman for the River Styx. Yeah. They've got him, and then you've got like a little cat boat next to him.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. I like that. So rest in peace, Incubus. You're a wonderful ginger cat. Anyway, okay. So like beyond that, there are quite a lot of different rivers in Hades. Obviously, you got the River Styx, which is the first one that you end up coming across. It's only named. It's the only named river in Homer's Iliad, which is the, I guess, the telling of the Battle of Troy. From a sort of like a fantasy mythological process. But there are other ones as well. There is the Archeron, which is the misery of river and woe. I bet that stinks. It's mentioned in many sources of archaic poetry, but it's less prominent than the Styx. But yeah, at some point it's described as a river which flows into a swampy lake and converges with another river.
River?
River.
The river that withers.
And yeah, like there seems to be like quite a lot of different ones. There is also the the Phlegethon river, which is a river of blazing fire. And it leads to the depths of Tartarus, which is essentially much like the abyss-like Sheol that you mentioned. Tartarus is the sort of the Hades version of that. Yeah. So, like in the creation of the earth and everything like that, you've got those titans, right? That are basically like they create humans, I think, but then they get killed themselves by the gods. Yeah. But then Tartarus, which is this sort of like abyss-like, almost underworld planet. It's a
prison, right?
It's underneath it, and it seems to be. I mean, it's probably described in quite a lot of different ways, but it's almost Earth-like in its like makeup. but it's like nothingness. It's shrouded in complete darkness. It's meant to be where most of the souls end up eventually, but it's also where the Titans reside as well. But then another thing that I found quite interesting with the idea of Hades is there is a class structure.
Okay.
Okay, so there is the
Love a bit of hierarchy in hell.
yeah, like there's the asphodel meadows, and the majority of the deceased dwell there. And it's often here where you've got these heroes that go into the underworld. It's there where they sort of like meet them and stuff like that. That's where most people are chilling. Okay, but there is a paradisical afterlife as well, a paradise afterlife, a utopia reserved for specifically distinguished individuals, and it's called the Elysium. Yeah, much like that sci-fi film that
That's
came out.
immediately the first thing that came to my
Yeah,
head.
yeah,
I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie to you.
yeah. Niels Blomkamp, is it? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the director. I think at some point in time, I think it was what's his name, Matt Damon. And so,
Yes, because I always think of the things coming out of his head.
yeah, and that's meant to be about. It's not about an underworld, but it's about people living on like a spaceship or something like
Yes.
that, and that being like everyone's kind of like special.
And it's kind of surreal in a way because it like, goes all over the place.
Yeah, and I think actually Eminem was actually offered that role. Marshall Mathers, himself.
I can't really see that.
Yeah, but look, I mean, he's a great actor. Okay, like
Yeah, but he's a great character actor. I'm not sure he'd work in a sci-fi.
look, I mean, I think he would. I think if he actually pursued an acting career, he could have actually done something with that. But yeah, so you've got like this area where people were essentially promised, like, for example, in the Odyssey, a character called Menelaus is promised that it would go there instead of dying. So it's like distinguished from the afterlife and it's separate. It's where life is easiest for men. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a heaven sort of thing,
Yeah.
but it's separate to like the gods and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Misogyny heaven.
you're not going to go to Mount Olympus. That's for the gods. That's where the gods chill. If you want heaven, you're going to go to Elysium.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like, it's difficult for me to understand like what you have to do. But I don't think it's like like you can't buy your way in. You've got to be righteous. That's the idea,
Okay.
isn't it? Yeah. So it all works out in the end, I suppose. Still, I think the idea of righteousness is a bit subjective in itself, really.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Well, it depends on the righteousness of the time, right? What we would consider righteous now would not necessarily be considered righteous then.
Do you think I'm getting into heaven?
I mean, loaded question, isn't it?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Um,
You talk about shitting a lot.
I mean, like, but in what way? Like, I could have a conversation with an angel about shitting, and he might think that I'm crude, but he can't say that I've sinned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he
might be
probably
like,
would, fucking prude.
You're a crude, rude dude.
I'm a crude, rude drude, and you're a
Yeah,
prude,
yeah,
so
yeah.
fuck you.
The fact that you're already like you haven't even met this angel, you're like fuck you, you angel dickhead.
Fuck you. What is even your name? Looks at his ID badge. Apollyon the Destroyer. Fuck you guys.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you're a big wig, don't you? But it turns into a biblically accurate angel with all bloody eyes. Absolutely not.
Poke him in the eye.
There you go.
Solved.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not getting into heaven if that's the case. Like, if I'm having these sort of interactions with things, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I think you've rationalised that well.
Yeah. You've got that version of hell. I don't really want to go into like the Greek mythology so much. One thing that you've got to take into account is that the idea of these catabasis sort of stories, the delving into hell, is like it's so influential on like Greek and also Roman literature. So all the biggies, all right. So you've got Ovid's Metamorphoses. You've got the Aeneas, which is by Virgil. You've got the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. They all refer to the underworld, and they all have a little bit where they're actually going into the underworld at some point in time. Yeah, it's really, really interesting how much of a cultural impact it has, and how like important it is to those Greeks and early Romans and stuff like that.
Yeah. We've said this before, and we'll say it so many times when we look at the impact of mythos and religion in a wider culture as a way to try and personify the human experience. So many things cross-reference, and like I'm looking at my notes from the Mayan underworld, and you'll so many things just kind of line up with all of the key kind of myths or religions that we currently have. So for example, I'm just going to go through the Mayan underworld a little bit.
Yeah, go on.
And we'll treat this as a little bit of like a quiz show, because like last episode you tried to embarrass me.
Tom,
not
right,
last episode.
Tom,
Was
the
it
right
frogs?
dickhead that he is, thought that frogs peed standing up.
Look,
what a dickhead!
You were convincing enough that I was like, maybe everything I know about the world is wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I think the idea of deceit might come back when we start talking about sins.
So here we go. Yeah, well, all I'm saying is if this is a point system, your boy is going to heaven and you are going to be at a different space to me. So
will you write to me?
No.
Oh, fuck off then.
I'm gonna be doing like cool things.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, bouncing on my floor of boobies. I don't know what happens.
Bouncing on my floor of boobs. Okay.
I'm just going straight to what's that film that's got that in? Is it like 40 Days and 40 Nights?
I don't know.
I
like that. It's very much like my earlier perceived Clunge dungeon, but we'll move on.
So your Clunge, you're all about I don't know why I wanted to say smelly vaginas. I don't know why I asked to smell.
I'm not into smelly vaginas. But the idea that's a crazy way to go.
Clungeon, like dungeons are dirty and musty.
Oh yeah, I know Carl. Yeah. If I know Carl, I know he's into smelly vaginas. I hope my wife doesn't ever hear this. Jesus.
That's all right. She doesn't listen.
No, it's true.
So the Mayan underworld.
Yeah.
It's not full of...
Where are you even going with that? You can't just go in there. What was this whole point about smelly vaginas? Where are you going with that?
Just that, you have that, and I have the bouncy boob room.
Okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm up to speed now.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mayan underworld
does
not have either of those doors accessible.
Well, in different interpretations.
Yeah. Nope, doesn't say anywhere on my notes. Smelly vagina room or bouncy boob room.
It's not smelly.
Is that the hill you're dying on?
Yeah.
Like, the Clungeon is clean. There's a cleaner comes in and cleans it all the time.
Somehow it's clean. Yeah.
Right. So, the Mayan underworld...
Wait a minute, actually, the vagina is self-cleaning. I'm getting off topic here. Anyway, carry on.
The Mayan underworld, known as, and are you ready for me to butcher the pronunciation? Zillabarba.
Yeah.
With an X. It translates to place of fright.
Okay.
So we're kind of on brand already.
Scary place.
It's a scary place. It's a realm of darkness and fear ruled by death gods and their helpers, where the spirits of the dead journey after death.
Yeah.
And it's kind of got it's got a systematic ruling. It's a hierarchy, just like other kind of underworlds.
Yeah.
So what I found really interesting was the location and the access of it was through caves and sinkholes.
Okay.
Which the Mayans believed were sacred. So they wouldn't necessarily try and traverse a sinkhole or a crack in a cave if they felt like it went through the underworld. And you kind of see this within culture. If you watch Journey to the Centre of the Earth, the start of that film is them discovering a sinkhole and them discussing whether it's the key to the underworld. So that is still kind of prevalent. The the Mayan creation myth describes it as a vast underworld with rivers, mountains, and other landscapes similar to the living world.
Yeah.
So you would go through this kind of like sinkhole or cave, and it wouldn't be a vast cave system. You were again kind of like Journey to Center of the Earth. It's a whole different kind of ecosystem. It's a whole different world.
It's interesting. It's interesting how like different things influence different cultures and their mythos. So, you know, when I was like a couple of episodes ago when we were looking at frogs, we were looking at frog gods.
Yeah.
I mentioned the thunder god Chuck, and yeah, they even mentioned there, like it was prominent where he lives essentially, and again it was in this like, you know, underground caverns and I think
Sort of
sinkholes
ambiguous
were even
places,
mentioned.
right?
Yeah,
Places that we can't explore, but our brain wants to kind of say, what is there? There must be something.
Yeah, but also, you know, stay away from that is sort of like a natural inclination, you know. And I think a lot of the time we kind of talk about like the idea of gods and how they're created and myths and monsters and how they're created, and like from a primitive standpoint, or at least an ancient standpoint, you know, this idea that we just have these sort of like instincts of fear and stuff, and how that is then influential on the way in which we perceive the world and stuff.
And it gets like really interesting when you get into the weeds of it as well, because the rulers and deities, there were two main ones, okay? So there was Apuk, Ahpuch, also known as Sisin, which was the god of death.
Yeah.
And he had a wife, just like a lot of kind of rulers of the underworld. Ixtib. She was the goddess of suicide.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Now, I thought that was really interesting to have a distinction, because a lot of cultures did not distinguish death and suicide as two prominent things, and that just makes me think: was that a prominent thing within the Mayan culture, that it had a whole separate deity? I just found that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like suicide in itself is what's the word? Like a loaded subject, like. At least now, you know.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like, I hate to like offend anyone by not making like a distinction or a differentiation and stuff. But like, you know, like the ancient South Americans of the Yucatan or the Mexicos or whatever, they did do like, you know, people sacrifice, didn't they? Like,
yeah, but that wouldn't be under suicide, would it?
I know. But like. If you're willing to kill someone else for your god, like maybe there's that idea of sacrificing oneself.
Sacrificial suicide.
Yeah, like and to have that like linked to an actual god, like you're giving yourself up to that god. Is there that element to it?
It doesn't delve, but it's an interesting question to have, isn't it? And I think with mythos that doesn't necessarily exist anymore, some of those answers might be a little bit lost.
Yeah.
But what I found equally as interesting is within the Mayan kind of system, they believed souls would journey through the underworld. So they would kind of leave the body, go through, find an entrance to the underworld through a cave system, a sinkhole example, and then they would face trials and dangers to reach the 9th level.
Interesting.
Now, we'll probably talk about that again, about the idea of it being a tiered system, particularly 9 levels, 9 levels of hell.
Yeah. In Dante's Inferno, which we'll talk about soon, is the idea of 9 levels of hell as well. So that's interesting how like you've got those two and it kind of works. What's up with the number 9? Why is that so like related to all of this? It's one away from 10.
It is one of So, to protect moving...
You heard it here first, everyone.
Well, it's just the high-level brain stuff that we cook up here in the Two Strange Men HQ.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just so that you understand how high-functioning we actually are, 8 is above 9.
You fucked it up now, Tom. You showed him we don't know maths.
There's now going to be a YouTube shot where we just do like little number graphics in there, so we can like 10 following an 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good at math. Shut up! Don't ask for our certificates. So because of this, because of the souls kind of like entering, sinkholes and caves were considered like sacred places, and the entrance to the underworld, the Xibalba. And quite often where Mayans would perform rituals and offerings. So when you see them kind of outside of a cave system, it's not necessarily because they lived there.
Yeah.
That's a sacred site. So a lot of their altars and a lot of their kind of infrastructure would be around cave systems
Cool.
because that's where they would sacrifice kind of crops, people, giving it to their gods.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just really really interesting. One example that I could find was the Atom Cave in Belize.
Yeah.
Which was seen as one of the great kind of entrances, and the Great Mayan Aquifer Project has discovered a flooded labyrinth of caves on the Yucatan Peninsula, and these caves were actually explored and was seen as kind of like if you went any further, you'd be within the underworld. So there were several sites that were revered, and when you look at the Mayan civilization, they do a lot of like topography now, and they take kind of like an air drone, and they have like this technology that can kind of scan underneath, and they can find like lost civilizations there, and they found a lot of kind of sacred sites because of that.
I tell you, one of the scariest things for me, and I'm not someone who's ever going to do any sort of extreme stuff, like like bungee jumping, jumping out of a plane and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to do, but I think even scarier than that would be the idea of spelunking, of just like going a little bit too far, because there's been stories of people that have literally just fucking died because they've just got wedged, and they're like so far down in like the earth that like there's no way of getting them, and they've had people trying to get to them, and they've just not been able to survive, and it's because of things like they are at an odd angle and all the blood's rushing to their head and they get no relief from that.
It literally makes my heart sink.
Oh,
just
it's
the
fucking
idea of
scary
it.
as shit. Yeah. So like, at some point in time, these people would say, yeah, fuck that, I'm not going any further. And so you've got this idea of like what's beyond what I can actually fucking see.
Yeah.
I
mean, how many things, how many stories and mythos and religions talk about, what's deep in the ocean, because we can't go there. So our brain makes up something. And you're right. When we sense a danger, we've always made stories, so cautionary tales. Don't go there because da-da-da's there, and that's hell, and that's this, because it protects us as a species. When we weren't equipped to go into sinkholes and caves and down crevices, so. All of these myths, that really kind of open-looking cave, that's the entrance to hell, don't go there.
Yeah.
That's for the heroes, that's for the brave of us, that's not for you.
That's it. So, okay, so Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, let's get it.
Let's get into it. So, Dante is a character from the Divine Comedy. He's also, I believe, it's the writer as well. But it's a real interesting sort of like way to go. So like we've talked about the idea of what meta is and that sort of stuff, and its Greek origins. You can really see it in quite a lot of these catabasis stories. We talked briefly about the idea of the frogs, the play by Asclepius, where a playwright, a god is sent to like find a playwright and bring him back to the surface so that he can, make better plays again, as a way of like creating a satire around the way in which plays are written at the time, after like certain playwrights died and stuff. Real interesting sort of like take there. But also, later on you've got in Dante's Inferno, or the Divine Comedy trilogy, you've got this idea that Dante is accompanied by a voice of reason sort of character like Jiminy Cricket or something like that as he goes through the underworld. But the person that's following him is Virgil, a Roman poet who I've mentioned previously as writing the epic poem Aeneas, or I think I'm saying that right, Virgil's Aeneas. So essentially you've got, Aeneas was about, the Aeneid is the title of the poem, and Aeneas is the hero. And so Aeneas would have been one of the survivors of Troy that then went off to found Rome. And it's that journey from Troy to Rome that ends up being the story in the Aeneid by Virgil. So he's there, long dead. Dante's writing about him anyway, and writing him as one of the characters in Dante's Inferno. And this is essentially, Dante is hoping, I believe, to find his wife, rescue his wife, etc., which is often the case. And Virgil's there as well. They descend through a number of different layers of hell. And I'm just going to quickly go through them. They very much resemble the 7 deadly sins, and that's where we get the idea, I guess, of the 7 deadly sins. Now, that's different in Christianity compared to the 10 commandments. Thou must not do this, thou must not do that. But they're obviously attached because they are those sins, yeah. And there is an actual a lot of debate in these sort of times about I guess the layering of what sin should go above the other. The order of it. Like, what's an S tier sin? What's a B tier sin?
I could have a stab at it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll do that. Okay. So first of all, I'll talk about the first circle. There are different circles of hell, and you're descending into this almost sort of conical structure as you descend deeper into to hell. So they end up being quite large circles, but then they're descending. And by the time you get to the final circle, that is where the devil resides, etc. Yeah? Alongside this as well, that's only Dante's Inferno. That's the first in a trilogy. But he also goes to purgatory. He also goes to paradise or heaven as well.
He's a busy guy.
And they've all got different levels as well. And they're often about whether you've done good in the world, which level of good will you go to when you enter paradise. So, for example, you're going to the planet Mars because it's all celestial, right? You're going to the planet Mars if you're a Christian martyr. Okay. So next time they do that Mars rover, they should check out to see if they can see a particular Christian martyr. One was made recently. It was a young boy, and he's made a martyr because he was good at computer games or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really
they just throw him out.
Fucking weird one. Yeah, but that's what this new pope's doing. But anyway, but there's other ones as well.
He's a bloody trailblazer.
He is. But it's like in further layers of hell. What's interesting with these stories is there's an element of the Christianity there, but he also is he's morphing and changing and using and reusing Greek myth as well. So essentially hell and Hades are the same place, but they are essentially told it from different perspectives and stuff like that through different stories. So there is a circle that has Cerberus, for example, amongst other things as well, and other characters as well from Greek mythology make their way into those layers of hell as well. And essentially it's literally just like a massive tour where Virgil's there going, oh yeah, well this is here and this is what this is and that sort of thing, and you just get that kind of story. So what do you think the first layer of sinning hell is? So you've got limbo.
I could cheat and go to my little cheat sheet here.
Oh, don't cheat. Go on, give it a go.
First layer, I think it will probably be liars, the lost liars, just kind of
liars.
aimlessly wandering about with maybe lost tongues.
Well, this is very interesting, and I'm glad that you made that fucking shitty faux pas there, because you're so wrong, mate. It's actually the opposite. Okay,
You are not very nice today.
I'm going to hell. I don't care. So look, so essentially, like the first level is limbo, and then the second circle, which is the first set of sins,
Yeah.
would be lust.
Oh,
If you're getting your freaky on, yeah,
freaky's only level 1.
it's only level 1. Yeah.
I've seen some pretty freaky things that definitely need to be down in the underworld.
Well, maybe they just didn't have that in the
it was
14th century.
It was vanilla or just a little bit freaky.
Yeah. Okay, so here they are. Okay, so first circle is limbo, and that's for non-Christians, basically. If
Okay.
you're not a Christian, you'll just go there anyway. So unbaptized infants all hanging out in limbo. Great.
What a beautiful image.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope someone's looking after them. And then beyond there, you've got second circle, lust. Third circle, gluttony. Fourth circle, greed. Fifth circle, wrath. Sixth circle, heresy. Seventh circle, violence. Eighth circle, fraud.
Oh.
And then ninth circle, treachery. Okay, so in Dante's version of hell, he has ordered it so that the liars and the treachery, which you would interestingly put as the first level,
Yeah.
as it's not that bad, is right at the
bottom.
end, right at the bottom,
Interesting.
right at the
Interesting.
bottom. So yeah,
But like fornicators and killers, right?
yeah,
That-
absolutely. I mean, like fornicators, like if you're a fornicator and you're a killer, okay,
Yeah.
now
Like serial killers right at the bottom.
if you're doing any of that, guaranteed you would
It's like
have.
you're talking, if you're Paul, if you're doing that again,
No,
I'm
it's
not going to be happy.
I'm not trying to influence any serial killers out there. You do what you do. All
No,
right,
don't
I'm not
say
here
that.
to judge.
No, please don't say that. We do not advocate for the harm, injury, or murder of any individual at any point during the podcast.
If you want to get to heaven, guys, okay, don't do that. All right.
Yeah.
This has been my sermon. Anyway, so like, if you're going to like murder or fornicate, you're going to have to do some treachery. So
I guess to murder, but to fornicate, do you need to
yeah,
lie?
because like if you're fornicating, okay, like someone's going to find out. Yeah.
True.
Like, and it's quite likely that you're going to have to like cover that.
They're
Like
co-current sins.
an adulterer, for example. Yeah, that's going to be on one level of the lust, but they also would have done some treachery.
Yeah.
As well. Like, where is it that someone's going to do violence? Yeah, and get into the seventh cell, or seventh circle, even.
Yeah.
But then miss out treachery. If you're
That's
killing
true.
someone,
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
to do that. But like, it's a logic that maybe Dante's not figured out at this point in time, and he's got it all mixed up, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
you agree with me as well. you
Yeah,
know?
I think that's a little bit backwards.
Yeah.
But I reckon just before he wrote this, somebody pissed him off and stabbed him in the back, and he was like, "Treacherous on the last."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's gone from personal experience. He's
Yeah.
gone, right,
Yeah.
get my notes for this book, change that, put that over there.
That line
That'll be a
tone.
later chapter.
Yeah.
And he just like scratch out like whatever he was going to do for murderers, and he just put in
Yeah.
like fraudsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like we are literally like scratching the surfaces. So like each of these circles had their own sort of like unique sort of sin or unique sub sin. So there are also levels on that level. So, for example, within the third circle, there would be then like a series of sub-circles within there for different types of gluttonous sinners.
Okay.
And things like that. And they'd all have their own different punishments as well, which is interesting. Yeah? So, for example, gluttons on the third circle of gluttony, of the third circle, which is gluttony, would be forced to lie in filthy, icy slush, symbolising their overindulgence and lack of self-control. And then in greed, the greedy and the prodigal are condemned to push heavy weights in a constant futile struggle. Yeah, it's not worth it. Like going through all of that greed.
I feel
and
like
stuff
there could have
that.
been a bit more on the nose with this.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's the 14th century or whatever.
But think about this, right?
Yeah.
So the gluttonous have to endlessly consume and feel famished no matter how much they consume.
If that was the case, they would love that. Yeah.
What? But endlessly feel unsatisfied.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah,
So
fair
no matter
enough.
what they
Always
consume,
hungry.
they'll always be hungry. They'll always be in pain. They will always look like want more, but it'll never be enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can never satisfy the pain, no matter what they do.
Yeah. I mean,
Love that.
you'd love that, yeah?
No, it's in like
For them.
For them.
For them. Yeah,
Not
okay,
for me.
all right, fair enough. I don't know. I don't know which one I'd like to hang around in the most, to be honest with you. You know, for example...
You'd be there in the lust pit, like, smelly
actually,
vaginas.
yeah, that might be good. So, unfortunately, though, the lustful are blown about by a violent storm, symbolising their lack of control over their passions.
Okay.
I mean, like, I might be there, like, I'm getting my trousers off, like, and do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm
I'm hanging around,
blowing.
like, I'm in a gust with lots of other people, okay?
Sounds
but
like a good time.
they're all lustful. We could
Yeah.
turn this into an orgy, couldn't we? Like,
Yeah.
let's face it, if we're going to be there, we might as well
Yeah.
have fun. But then there's
See,
a demon.
That's why you'd be there.
Yeah, there's a demon that's going to be like, oh, wait, break it up. You're not meant to be enjoying yourself.
Yeah, but then the demon might be like, actually, do you know what? This is kind of hot.
I'm just going to watch. Like some sort of plumber in a porno. Yeah. Just all of us just in mid-coitus floating around a yeah.
Tallywhackers and bits everywhere.
That's it, yeah. It'll be a fun time. Okay, all right. So yeah, that's lust and everything like that. But like, what I find interesting is that, like, we're talking about this whole idea of mapping out things, yeah. Like Dante goes full in with this, okay? Because not only have you got the circles, but then within there you've got your individual sins, okay? And everything has its own sort of like names and everything like that. He's like Linnaeus like levels of like naming shit, you know, like he's almost giving Latin names for everything, okay? So for example, when my most interesting one here is the idea of like the eighth circle, and the idea of fraud, okay? And he's really gone to town with this, okay? Because the eighth circle is divided into 10 bolgias. Okay? You're getting into, like, you're a D&D fan. All of the demons and stuff like that, they've got names that are kind of like, you know...
Guy's a nerd.
Representative of, like, Dante's Inferno and stuff like that. So the circle of fraud is called Malbolge, okay? And it's got these different bulges, okay? And what I found interesting was that you've got then these different types of fraudsters. They're all subcategorized, okay? So you've got, like, for example, simoniacs, which are people who sell church offices and rolls or sacred things. They're selling things that shouldn't be sold, sort of thing. You know, like Jesus, like knocking people out of the temple for selling stuff and shit like that. And then, like, beyond there, you've got people who are like sorcerers, astrologers, seers, and others who attempt to pervert God's laws. You know, who's the guy who realized that the earth did not go around the sun? What's his name? Aristotle. Or someone like that, you know, the people that would be like persecuted by the church, like they're going in there, fucking scientist bugger, like those sort of people. Speculators, extortionists, and blackmailers get the fifth bolgia. Hypocrites. Yeah, I could be a hypocrite and not even realise I'm being a hypocrite, but unfortunately, I'm going to be forced to wear heavy lead robes as they walk around the circumference of the circle. Yeah, my favourite one though is the idea of flatterers. Yeah.
Oh, I'm fucked.
You're fucked, absolutely, mate. This is where you're going to reside, and this is why I'm bringing this up. Okay, you fucking flatterer. You're always giving people compliments and stuff. You will be forced to fester in a giant pile of shit.
How can I spin that like you spinned yours? Is the shit actually chocolate?
This ain't chocolate, mate, all right? This ain't chocolate, this is shit.
So by trying to make other people feel good, I'm a piece of shit. Is that...
I think the idea was that, like, you know, people build other people up, but they just do it like, oh, you're so amazing, king. Please let me stay in your court.
Yeah, to get something out of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And you're always giving me compliments.
Because I like you.
Nah, go to hell, mate.
Specifically, the 8th layer.
Yeah, specifically.
And how
that
can
one.
it be one of the worst ones? Someone going, you look nice today. Literally the bottom of hell for you, please.
Get fucked. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, there's so much that we can talk about. We're running out of time. It's mental. And we've barely touched the surface here with the old Underworld and stuff like that. But I thought what's quite interesting was that hierarchy that stayed in other things. So, for example, have you ever heard of the Apocrypha?
No.
So the Apocrypha is a list of books that are about the characters from the Bible. And they're essentially books that didn't make it into the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you've got, like, you know, other Adventures of Jesus, for example.
Adventures of Jesus.
And other such things
Where
like
he's got
that.
some AK-47s.
Riding a dinosaur. Yeah.
That shit's not going to fly, not for our Bible.
So, like, you know, you've got, like, the Book of Revelations, which is the Apostle John's account of visions and stuff like that. But in the Apocrypha, you've also got the Apocalypse of Peter, which is meant to have been written around 100 AD and 150 AD. And they say that it is pseudo-biographical, as in it's like been written by a disciple of Peter pretending to be him. And it's here that in this, you know, 100 AD, 100 years after, like, you know, Jesus died, purportedly, you've got this guy creating this list of again, different hierarchies in hell and explaining hell in a lot of detail. You know, some of the things include, like, the idea that blasphemers are hanged by the tongue and those who deny justice are set in a pit of fire. Murderers and accomplices are tormented by venomous creatures and numberless worms. Ooh. But they're murderers. Okay, murderers. That's a cardinal sin. Thou must not kill, right? That's up there, right? And it's like, okay, so take that into account, like, tormented by venomous creatures and numberless worms. Yeah. That's like a Bush Tucker trial in Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
You know, no.
Yeah.
I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
You want a bonk and you're in a tornado. Dante has got his priorities, like, not right.
So look, I mean, so again, this isn't Dante. This is the disciple of Peter.
Sorry, yeah.
So, like, he says about liars, fraudsters, etc., that we've talked about. Liars whose lies cause the death of martyrs have their lips cut off with fire in their body and entrails. So, like, if you lie and that causes a death, that's worse than death itself. That's worse than you causing an actual death. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Those who slander and doubt God's righteousness gnaw their tongues and are tormented with hot iron and have their eyes burnt. That's worse than, like, venomous creatures and worms. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these people, they put, like, murder, like, very low in the pecking order. And it's interesting.
But think at the time, like, people were dying left and right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you saved me the bother of killing him myself.
But you're lying to me.
Yeah,
you're gonna get it, son.
Yeah, that's it. Don't fucking lie to me. You don't know what happens to people that lie to me.
You can do what you want to me.
Yeah,
you can do what you want to my wife. But you tell me a lie, I'm having your tongue.
If you kill my wife and eat her and, like, desecrate the bones, okay, that's not as bad as if you told me you didn't.
Yeah, as long as you're honest about it.
As long as you're honest about it,
we can move past it.
We can work on this. Yeah. All right. Okay, like, I kind of feel like we created so much there, as in research and stuff, but you can barely touch the surface.
I am going to leave some of this, so I'm not going to try and ham-fist Aztecs in and some of the other stuff that I've done. I'm going to leave this for a part 2.
Cool. And we're going to finish now. We're going to have a bit of an extended episode now, because we're going to finish. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the film Dagon, which is an amazing sort of, like, H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. But I'm going to leave you just with a little sample. We talked about the idea of Persephone, and there is a festival for Persephone created by the ancient Greeks where they went a bit mad and enjoyed, like, hallucinogenic substances and things like that.
Oh, yeah,
We've got a whole episode dedicated to this on our Patreon, and here's a little clip now. Bye-bye. What is essentially the Eleusinian Mysteries?
It's a ritual that happened twice a year. The Lesser Mysteries, which was a bit of a kind of warm-up or purification process to get initiates ready, essentially, in the themes of what the ritual was going to contain. And then the Greater Mysteries, which would happen in September. As I say, they're around themes of fertility, rebirth, and eternal life. And they revolve around a story of Demeter. Is that pronounced correctly? Demeter?
Demeter or Demeter. I honestly don't think that we need to get too involved in the right pronunciation of things.
Indeed, I just like to get it right. And Persephone, because as a dyslexic, when I first read that, I read Persephone,
of course,
which is just horrible. So I'm glad to now be pronouncing that Persephone. So yes, these rituals, the Eleusinian Mysteries, were based around the story of Demeter and Persephone. So Demeter was the life-giving goddess of nature, agriculture, grain, taught us how to harvest, taught us how to plant seeds, produce flour. Persephone is Demeter's daughter, and it's a bit of a coming-of-age story for Persephone. There's also familiar characters in the Greek world of Zeus and Hades, brothers. Hades, obviously, god of the underworld. His brother Zeus, god of the gods, right? Just
certainly
the boss.
Top dog.
Yeah, top dog. So
what was he the god of?
Zeus.
Other than thunder?
As I say, god of the gods. He just seems like the OG, original gangster.
Okay. He's the god of being in control of the other gods. He's basically like the Optimus Prime of
yeah, that's a nice. I like this vision of Zeus.
And his brother Hades, or Megatron.
Okay, we're going to have to explore this further. Yeah. But yeah, I'm a bit vague on, indeed, Zeus's role, god of thunder for sure.
I'll tell you what Zeus did, all right?
Okay,
he essentially was, I mean, you've got like the Norse mythology and you've got like Loki, the trickster god, who essentially just, through his antics, would create the stories that, you know, we all know.
I see. You know, just by dicking around, being a mischief.
He caused Ragnarok because he basically had sex with like some sort of mountain troll or mountain hag or something like that, and then he bore like Fenrir, who ended up swallowing the earth, and like a big leviathan as well. So just keep it in your pants. But the thing is, Zeus, most of his stories was about his fucking infidelity, which was constant. He would do things like transform himself into a bison so he could have sex with a woman. I don't know why he would have to do that, but then, you know, another time he would transform himself into a swan so he could have sex with a woman, and you know, that sort of thing. And of course, a lot of the stories came from the jealousy of Hera as well.
Indeed, I mean, you would have thought he'd just transform himself into like a hot dude. Yeah. I mean, why a swan or a bison or whatever?
Because he was a freaky guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and
the ladies were also freaky?
I guess so.